Hi, my name is Christian from Christian Sap Woodworking, and if you like this entry table, I'm going to show you step by step how I created this, from the Fusion 3D rendering all the way down to the different angled parts, so stay tuned. The first step in the project is to create a 3D rendering, and this is what I came up with. With the design finalized, I start on the legs. I'm first cross-cutting them to length using my miter sled. With all 4 legs cross-cut to length, I then rip them down to the equal size to create the 4 leg blanks. These legs have a 2-sided taper, and I use my tapering jig on the table saw to cut the tapers. The aprons will be attached to the legs using the domino. It is important to make sure you mark all your reference faces to make sure everything lines up appropriately. It's also important to cut the joinery prior to doing any edge treatment to the legs so you have flat and square reference faces. I add a 4-sided bevel to the legs for a slimmer look. With the legs complete, I now move on to the stretchers. I repeat the process that I used for the legs, cross-cutting everything to length, and then I rip it down. While I'm cutting all 4 of the stretchers to length and width, I do the same thing with the template. It's very important to cut all 4 of these at the same time to make sure all the measurements line up perfectly. With the template blanks cut, I now lay out the angles that I'm going to cut on the bandsaw. To cut the angles, I'm going to do this on my Laguna 14BX bandsaw. You can see here how easy it is to move it out into the middle of my garage shop so I can have additional storage. Hooking this up to dust collection is also a breeze. It has 2 ports that create excellent dust collection. For my dust collector, I have the Laguna P-Flux 1, and it collects pretty much all of the dust at the bandsaw. You can see that I'm able to follow my layout lines because of the dust collection. None of the dust gets in the way of the workpiece, and I'm able to cut precisely on my line. The blade I'm using is a 3/8 inch shear force blade from Laguna, and I love this thing for cutting tapers and angles. The fine adjustments of the Laguna bandsaw allows me to set up this saw perfectly, allowing for very minimal cleanup using a spoke shave. It is very simple and easy to set up, and I highly recommend that you check it out. With the templates created, I hold them up to the stretcher pieces and I transfer the layout lines using a pencil. With the layout lines transferred, I then go back over to the bandsaw and I now rough out the stretchers with the angles marked out. I'm honestly amazed at how well the bandsaw tracks, giving me a nice true line. Also, the dust collection is just truly amazing. You can see here through all the shots there is very minimal dust on the table. Another feature that I love about this bandsaw is the brake. It stops the blade quickly. Again, here's the mobility kit in use, allowing me to push it away for additional room in the shop. With the stretchers roughed out, I then take it to the router table to use the template for a flush trimming operation. For my workflow, this works excellent. It allows me to create additional parts using the same template so every part is exactly the same. For safer flush trimming operations, I created this sled here with some scrap pieces of plywood and 2 clamps. With the stretchers created, I now do the joinery to match up with the legs. Again, I am using the domino, and again, make sure that you keep those reference faces square and flat. This is going to come in handy later on. And make sure you label all your pieces accurately. pencil just sands off easily. The finish I chose to use for this project is conversion varnish from Target Coatings. This is a water-based conversion varnish, and I love this stuff. Sprays on excellent and a very durable finish. Unfortunately, my shop's very small and I don't have a big fancy spray booth, so I'm spraying outside. Threw up some sawhorses and laying down the finish. With the base of the entry table done, it is now onto the top. For the top, I'm using a 8/4 piece of walnut that I'm going to resaw. We've already seen the 14BX excel at cutting angles, but here it is resawing 8/4 walnut. Again, this is just a 3/8 regular blade. It is not a resaw king or anything like that, and it's doing a phenomenal job. One thing I want to point out is that the Laguna 14BX comes in a 110 and a 220. I went with the 110 due to my limited 220 in the shop, and it has only a 1.75 horsepower versus a 2.5 horsepower, and look at how well it still performs. With the top cut down to final size, I decided to add some angles on the edges. To do this, I used my crosscut sled and some clamps. Back over to the router table to do the edge treatment for the top. I do 2 different bevels on the top and bottom that gives it a very clean look. And now to the most stressful part of the build, the glue up. You can see here how I fumble through it. I didn't plan this out very well. I left this in to show you that practicing your glue ups and making sure you have everything laid out properly is always the best idea. You can see that I figure it out and I make it work, but unfortunately when I started this, I mixed my parts up and I had to do some quick thinking on the fly before the glue set up. Luckily I was able to make it work. To attach the base to the top, I'm using figure 8 bolts. I recess the figure 8 bolts using a Forstner bit. I just eyeball this and it seems to work pretty well. To attach the figure 8 bolts to the base, I just use some provided screws. Here I'm going around and making sure all of them are secured. Last step, securing the base to the top using the same provided screws. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate your support, and I want to send a big thank you to Laguna for sponsoring this video and allowing me to show you the build process of how I created this entry table. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Laguna or myself. Thank you again and have a great day. Bye.